Good afternoon. Welcome to NUPI's today's seminar about a very topical topic. It's a great pleasure to invite you here to our new premises. I'm sure for most of you it's the first time you're here at our new NUPI premises. I also heard some of you went to the old premises, and therefore excuse for being late. But here we are. Welcome so much. My name is Karsten Friis. I'll be the moderator today with our discussion together with the Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna. Sorry for getting that. Thank you so much, sir. I had practiced, but I still failed. And with our own State Secretary, Deputy Foreign Minister Eivind Petersson. We have about 1 hour, so we will invite them to do a few introductory comments, and then we will have a little discussion on the sofa here, or on the chairs. And after that, I'll of course open also for Q&A from you in the audience. We have 1 hour altogether, and this is being streamed online, so what you will said will also be recorded. So just be aware of that, if you want to be controversial or not. But I hope the ministers will be that, the official ones be very controversial, because that's more fun to listen to. Our guest of honor today, as I mentioned, Minister of Foreign Affairs in Estonia. He's been there for about 2 years, but he also been Member of Parliament for several years. He also been previously Minister of Defense and Minister of Social Protection. So it's a long, long political career, although he's much younger than me. So that's how it is. I will invite you, please, sir, to come and kick us off, and then Petersson would follow up, and then we will sit there afterwards.
Okay.
So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, and it is my great pleasure and honor to be here. As I understand, this is the first meeting in this location, but it's more important even that the topic what we are talking about, and of course it is our security. Bad thing is that everybody is talking about peace, but not actually the reasons why the aggression started. And Estonia has been talking about this, that Russia is an aggressive country already more than 20 years. And let's just stop for a moment and not talk about peace for any cost, because I think that Ukrainians want peace and we want peace and everybody wants peace. But the question is that how can we actually eliminate the reasons why this aggression started? And it started already 2014. The war is not ongoing 3 years, as we all say all the time, but even before. And the solution 2015 was not actually the solution. It was exactly that everybody was admiring for peace, and then was some kind of agreement, and actually everybody, especially Ukrainians, they knew that it won't last. They just used this time for preparations for the next step. But no one believed actually that Putin is going to wage this kind of war with all the atrocities. I mean, we are not talking only about what is happening on the battlefield. We're talking about more than 20,000 deported children. We are talking about the hostages still right now in Russia somewhere in camps as during the Stalin times. And also we are talking about actually the core reasons or the root causes, as Putin says. And please remember Munich 2007. There was a speech and the plan was public. And I wonder how the next years we have this Putinologues and many analysts who always try to understand that what actually Putin wants to get. But he made it public, but nobody believed that. And it was restoration of Soviet Union. And he put as well on the table to 2022 in December ultimatum. And it was not only about Ukraine, it was about Europe, it was about NATO, it was about the NATO umbrella, pushing back to 1997. It was also about that US troops will withdraw. And now we are talking about Finland, Sweden, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Hungary. That we should live in the future without NATO, maybe not membership, but at least it's the NATO umbrella of Article 5. And it's not about Ukraine only. So That's why we have been on the same position already years, mainly during the last 3 years, why we need to support Ukraine on military level, on financial level, and also why we need to understand that Russia will remain a threat for a long period. You know very well, of course, that the only person who left the Kremlin to retirement was Khrushchev. And all the others, they remain there until their physical death. So the same thing will happen with Putin as well. But we need to understand as well that even if Putin will get down, the regime will remain the same. And the threat for all of us will remain. And that's why we need to focus mainly about how to eliminate these root causes from our side. And this is how can we stop actually this aggression towards Europe. And I don't have to repeat it here, because I think that you're the like-minded persons. Now, what can we do? We have a new President Trump in office, and we witnessed as well the last weekend maybe, and even before, and we don't know what kind of decisions will be made even during our meeting here from the White House. But one thing is clear, that we cannot maybe follow everything, every word what President Trump says, but we must take President Trump very seriously, what he wants to achieve. And he said already before he was elected that he wants to have very rapid and quick peace. But we understand for now as well that he's alone in that, in the meaning that, of course, Ukraine, us, we need to have just and long-lasting peace very quickly. But the only person who doesn't want this kind of peace is Putin. And it's still there. Putin is playing the long-term game, and also somehow brought in as well Trump. Trump opened the doors for that, and now using every opportunity, every day, to put the new topics on the table. And we are not talking about Ukraine anymore at all. We are talking about global cooperation. We're talking about economic cooperation. We're talking about values. We're talking about democracies. As well, Vice President Vance's speech in Munich Security Conference, I think that you followed all of that. It was not about Ukraine. It was also about the democracies in Europe. It was about the new technologies. It was about the Russian influence during the Romanian president elections using the TikTok platform. So the scale of different topics about our security, our values, our way of life as we have used to live, it's all at the table right now. And we need to discuss. So what we need to do, very shortly, we must be united. One thing. Second thing, transatlantic relations are very important, and they will remain very strong. And I'm very solid about the NATO, Article 5. But what we need to understand that these relations, they will be different between Europe and US, at least during this administration. But it means as well that we need to not anymore wait the wake-up calls. I'm tired of these wake-up calls already. We have many of them. We need to wake up and to act. And what can we do? First thing, rapid increase of military support to Ukraine. That Ukraine can be able to fight for the freedom because they have no other choice. Even if US is going to decide to cut the support militarily. I do hope that they won't do it, because still the support is going into Ukraine. And also we're talking about not about figures and guns and weapons and ammunition, but we are talking about as well enablers. You know, they're technical things, you know very well. But if it happens, then we as Europeans, we need to secure that Ukraine has the free will to fight for their and our future. The second thing is that to start using as well the frozen assets of Russia. We have 300 billion frozen assets in Europe. We can use them. There's no legal problem. It's a political decision. So I do hope that we will have it very soon. So how can we explain to our taxpayers that we are investing more and more money, our taxpayers' money, at the same time when we are having 300 billion Russian frozen assets? So it's impossible to explain, actually, at least in Estonia. So what I wanted to say, we have all the resources in Europe that to actually stand up and have it. And the third thing is long-lasting security guarantees for Ukraine, but also for Europe. And I'm very clear about that the membership of NATO is the most efficient, the only long-lasting working security guarantee, not only for Ukraine, but also for our region. But I'm very practical as well. I understand it doesn't work right now politically. So we need to understand that the security guarantees, if we're going to give them to Ukraine, they cannot be just the traditional peacekeeping forces on the United Nations, because you know very well what does it mean. Because these are forces without military power between two parties. Both must accept them. We need to understand that these security guarantees probably must be military presence. But are we ready for that? In what conditions? What is the really backup system of that? So we need to discuss it right now amongst the willingness of the coalition of willingness. So this is very shortly for the beginning, and I do hope for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Once again.
Then good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to Margus and your delegation. Thank you also very much for bringing spring with you to Oslo, although this might very well turn out to be full spring, just to warn everyone that snow and cold weather might return soon. We live in interesting times, a bit too interesting maybe. And there's a quote ascribed to Vladimir Ilyich Lenin that comes to mind, although there's no historical record that he either said or wrote it, but nonetheless it's ascribed to him that in history, centuries pass and not much happens, and then weeks come and centuries happen. I had that sense of feeling back 3 years ago after the full-scale invasion, and I must admit I've had some of the same feelings in the past week and a half. Let me, as an introduction, just make two points. One of them uses not only humor, but dark humor as its starting point. And I know as a diplomat, it's using humor. It's a risky business. Dark humor, even more risky, so bear with me. It's the small story that I tell my very good Swedish and Finnish colleagues. I saw them here the other day in New York, a bit too interesting last week in New York as well. But then I tell them, guys, we had NATO, the most successful military alliance in the history of mankind. And then you guys joined, and look what happened. Which is maybe Nordic-Baltic dark humor. But it is also, in everything that's happening, it's the best thing that has happened in the past few years for Norway's and Norwegian security, and I would argue maybe, and you're nodding, for Estonian security as well. Geography matters, proximity matters. Look at NATO in our region. There was a bit of a gaping hole there that has now been covered, which is excellent news for Nordic-Baltic, Northern European security, because now we can plan completely without regard to that we were in different alliances. Now we're one alliance, and we can plan together, and that increases Estonia's security and Norway's security as well. And that is a very, very good thing with everything else that's happening. Secondly, here's another quote that there's no historical record, but it's a very useful quote these days as well, and that's the what is believed to have been said by Lord Ismay, and I think everyone has heard it before, about he was the first Secretary General of NATO, and he was supposed to have said that the purpose of NATO, in essence, is to keep the Russians out, the Germans down, and the Americans in. The Germans down part we have that has evolved. These days, I think we're all waiting for the Germans to step up, and there's a new government about to take office. And I think we all share the hope that they will actually step up and take the responsibility for Europe's security again. But the other two remains rather relevant today, 80 years almost later. And when it comes to keeping the Americans in essence, it's actually rather simple. What we need to do as Europeans is to step up, to go maybe from burden sharing to burden shifting, to do more for our own security, for our own defense budgets, do more together to enhance European security. Because that is the best way to keep the Americans in as well. And if that were not to happen as we would have preferred it to stay or to continue, and American resources are moved elsewhere, then having stepped up to better take care of our own security is the best backup plan nonetheless. So in all, I acknowledge it's more complicated than this, but it can be really boiled down to that we need to do more. And there are many things happening these days. Very useful meeting in London yesterday. The European Council will be meeting on Thursday. Things are moving rather fast, coming back to, if not centuries, a lot of things are happening within days nowadays. I think I'll leave it with that. Let me just say that I agree also fully when it comes to doing more for our own security, and in that, of course, we need to do more for Ukraine. Ukraine is a country where the bombs are literally raining. They're fighting not only for their own freedom and security, but for European security as well. Let there be no doubt about that. As we do more, I think the urgent task is to do even more for Ukraine. But I'm looking forward to discuss that issue and others with you later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Eivind.
Thank you.
You take the middle one,
Okay.
and over there, and I'll take this one. Great. Well, thank you, both of you so much for your introductions, and thank you for the water.
It's your water.
Thank you so much, nonetheless, for pouring it. Let's start with what happened on Friday. This show in the White House, or debacle, or whatever. I've seen somebody comparing it to an episode of Sopranos. I very basically asking, you know, for racketeer money, but I can protect you, but you have to pay. What's your reading of it? How serious does it signal something really new era, or do you think we'll find a way? I understand from London that Mark Rutte and others said we need to find a way to kind of reconcile, so to speak. But again, what's your reading of what happened on Friday? Starting with you, sir.
Yes, of course. I think that everybody watched this live or just a bit later. What happened in Oval Hall? What is Oval Office? Oval Office. And we were not expecting that, of course. And I think that many of us, and I think that the society is there in shock, of course. And I said publicly as well that I cannot imagine that one president is actually welcoming the other president, whoever it is, like this. But maybe this is something new we need to understand about the style. The bad thing is that now we need to put an energy in, because we need US as well if we're talking about the global peace and the stability. But the question is much more that why President Trump, together with the Vice President, actually did like this. So, and I don't know, because I'm not working for their administration. I'm working for Estonian Foreign Ministry and Estonian people. But it was not a good thing. What happened, definitely. I think that the only guy who really happy about that is Putin, because one practical thing, what didn't happen, was actually signing the minerals agreement, which was negotiated. So I can only assume that what is happening, and I told already in my introduction that actually Trump is under heavy pressure to reach very quick results, because he has promised that even before the elections, and also he has promised to deliver the peace very, very rapidly. And I think that this is something I've said before as well, that it can be a trap to open this kind of negotiations and taking down different opportunities as a membership of NATO and more sanctions and everything. The first place to put Putin under the heavy pressure. We need to put Putin under the heavy pressure on economical ways and military ways and so on, and then maybe to start negotiate, or maybe there will be a real willingness from Putin to actually come to negotiate, because I don't see it right now. So Putin is playing the long game.
I'll return to the potential negotiations afterwards. I'd just like to hear Eivind's also reflections on Friday. You had 2-3 days to kind of digest. How would you describe what we saw on Friday?
It was not a good day. Volodymyr Zelensky does not deserve to be treated that way. I mean, these images that some of you might have seen of Winston Churchill visiting the White House in 1942 comes to mind. One thing is the somewhat silly issue of what he was wearing, because as Zelensky is doing these days, because his country is at war, Churchill was wearing a very similar outfit back in 1942, where his country was at war. And Zelensky is the democratically elected leader of a country fighting bravely and courageously for their freedom. And this whole war is actually rather simple black and white. There should be no doubt about who's the aggressor and who's the victim, and who's fighting a righteous war of self-defense. Having said all that, looking at President Trump, he has a different style. We know that. And part of his style is the unpredictability. What was admittedly not a good day on Friday might very well turn around quite soon as well, in the sense that the policy of his new administration are not set in stone, which also means that we should not give up in terms of engaging our American friends, seeing their interest in maintaining support for Ukraine, of course with burden sharing and burden shifting, but it's not all dark. It's still possible to work with the Americans on this. And just one example from the days leading up to this, I think Trump was asked whether these silly statements about Zelensky being a dictator, and he responded, I cannot remember having said anything about the like, just as an illustration that things can change. And we should work to make sure that they change for the better.
Right, so we should, of course, still continue to engage with the United States, not giving up. But if you then kind of moving from what happened there about towards this prospect of ceasefire and the war, what puzzles me all the time is like what about Putin? I mean, as you said, he started the war. Both of you said that. And he's the one who can stop the war overnight. But we have all these discussions about who shall do what across the Atlantic. And now Macron was saying 1 month ceasefire. All these things seem to me be taken out of the air. Have you seen any indication whatsoever that the Biden, sorry. Putin is excuse me. Putin, because it said administration, that didn't ring a bell. We say Putin regime, not administration, right? Yeah. Any willingness, any signal of willingness to compromise or expressing goodwill or negotiate at all? I mean, on what basis are Trump talking about Putin negotiating? What's your thought about that? You start.
Just for the last question, we had good things as well. I think that Europe is having the different energy, to be honest. Even in London, and also, this is a different thing. It's very useful about waking up and also not only talking, but maybe even acting altogether. But coming to your question, I don't see Putin has any willingness to have a peace. He can play the games, maybe ceasefire or not ceasefire, but he's pushing. He's having now new oxygen. He's back at the table. Everybody's talking to him more than ever before during the last 3 years. And this is a dangerous thing because Russia is very good on that. But also, I think that he can ruin the opportunity for them as well. But I'm coming back to the root causes, because let's talk about them. Because Putin, instead of 3 days special operation, now is waging 3 years full-scale war. Everybody's talking that Ukraine is falling and Ukraine is losing, but it's not true. Because Putin has not gained any strategic breakthrough within the 3 years on the battlefield. Any. Zero. Just some territories and lots of lives, both sides. And he now wants to gain these goals during the negotiations. And my question is why we need to give them or him these goals. So instead of that, let's not making new plans all the time. Every day, new plan, new plan, new plan. We know exactly what to do. We need to support Ukraine on military level. We need to now count in as well that we don't know exactly what US will do, but at the moment we have this meeting, US is solid, is delivering to Ukraine. Second thing is the military support, I said, also financial support, frozen assets we have, and also what we know is Russia will remain a long-term threat to us as well. We need to rapidly increase our defense investments. And even then, we don't need to figure out the new plans for Europe, because we just adopted in Vilnius summit just 1.5 years ago the new regional defense plans. And happily as well, my colleague said that Finland and Sweden in. So let's fulfill these plans, what we have made. Just make decisions. Let's deliver. There's nothing new. And let's not always think about what the others are thinking. And one new thing is that no one else is coming to solve the problem in Europe instead of us. We need to deal with that. So that's the case. And then maybe Putin, as all the sanctions and so on, maybe Putin finally in the position that he needs to talk. And also Trump will talk to us more.
But I mean, if the scenario that United States stop supporting Ukraine, can we foot the bill, Europeans? I mean, you minister said so, but I mean, it's a lot of money. Are we willing and able?
We have all the money. Just we have one resource is 300 billion. We also, as a Norway, but putting 0.25% of GDP military support. We added last week 25% on that ammunition, just to show. Okay, Estonian GDP is not so big, but this is like an act that we delivered ammunition in the middle of those fuzzy things. We all can do it. So we have money for that.
Do you agree, Eivind? Do we have money for it?
You might very well say that. I couldn't possibly comment. No, I said it also partly looking at my watch, because there are other important meetings taking place in Oslo today as well. Okay. And let us return to that. We can speak more about that very soon. But then on the broader point and your previous question on whether there's been any change in Vladimir Putin's position, and the short answer is no. The maximalist war aims remain to take control over Ukraine and to rewrite European security order. And well, we're not being cowardly, being silly optimistic, but there's a bit of hope here in terms of the Americans as well, because they're about to realize there's not really any flexibility on the Russian side. Which might very well and should lead them to the next step, meaning that if they are to get any deal, they need to turn up the pressure on Putin. And it's possible to do that. We can strengthen the Ukrainians' hand and weaken the Russians' hand by, on the one hand, step up our support for Ukraine, but also to turn up the pressure on Putin and his regime. Just one specific example. The Russian economy these days, it's a Potemkin economy. Mm-hmm. It's a lot weaker than what Putin and his regime wants us to believe. And this is an information operation to their own population, to the West, to the wider world. And the way they're doing it is that they're cheating with the statistics and the numbers for inflation. The reality is that the Russian economy is in a recession. The official interest rate is 21%, I think. The real inflation rate is very, very high, much higher than official statistics. Which means that it's possible to turn up the pressure even further. Yes, admittedly, Vladimir Putin, this is not a frequency he listens much to, the economy and financial side. I mean, he's preoccupied with other fields. But the fact that he doesn't really listen on this frequency is actually another added vulnerability for his regime and for Russia in this conflict. It's possible to do more to step up the pressure on the Russian war economy as well.
But are any of you concerned? Let's take the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is that United States stops giving any help to Ukraine, becomes passive in NATO, and in addition open up trade with Russia again, so that the dollar starts flowing in. Can we? What do we do then?
I'm still on the position that let's support Ukraine, and I cannot say everything here online and live, but be sure that Ukraine will be able to fight for a pretty long term. Probably not gaining territories back, but not giving away everything, because you understand that this is not a theoretical question for them. It's an existential question. This is existential. They're fighting for their lives. And they need some capabilities. They need money to run their economy, their social systems, and so on. We have the money. And also, there are lots of weapons in the world we can buy still right now, even we are not able to produce them. I know that. So this is about us now. I'm not advocating for replacing US, because this is really bad if US is stopping the aid and even what you described, that all the other next steps, because this is very hard. But Timothy Schneider said very good idea, or the wording, not precisely the quote, but actually Ukraine has bought us 3 years' time, us. So it is in our interest that they will keep fighting if there won't be a peace right now, which is just and long-lasting, because they are buying time for us. So this is the logic behind that. And we need to understand that. And we need to explain that as well to President Trump and US, because US is dependent on EU as Europe, sorry, not EU, Europe, as much as we are dependent on US, not maybe on military level, but economically. So we just need to do more. And I'm sure, as my colleague said as well, then Trump will talk to us in more equal ways. So,
are we moving from a world of transatlantic shared values to only have shared interests? Eivind, you want to?
Yes, let's do your part first.
No, not yet. Shared interests are very useful as well. And sorry for grabbing all quotes. And this time I cannot remember exactly who said it, but it was an old British statesman remarking on British foreign policy, is that there are no permanent alliances, just permanent interests. The bonds across the Atlantic are deep. They have grown over decades. Yes, it matters very much who's on the top and the noises coming out of the White House. But we are so intertwined in so many ways that this cooperation will continue in so many ways. Yes, we'd like to see NATO also as based on common values. Through history, I mean, not every single NATO member has lived up to what we believe to be the most important values of the organization. Let's see what the future brings. My position, our position, is that yes, it's still based on common values, but common interests can bind very much as well.
I think that the values will remain the same, because the US naturally is about freedom, the personal freedom and freedom, global freedom. But now the question is at how much the democracies will be bended. And also, this is something what I'm personally very much interested already years, is about the new technologies, about communication, about the data, about the social media platforms, about the AI-based communication robots, which will be able within the next 3-4 years to communicate personally with hundreds of thousands of people in our societies, playing with the fears, giving disinformation, and actually stealing our elections already before they are taking place. So my question is whether we are actually ready for that. Are we ready for that? And we are not. Even Estonia, which is a very digitalized country, we are not ready for that. And then my question is finally as well that how autonomous Europe is. How autonomous is Norway or Estonia is actually about, we are talking about the global companies. I'm not naming them. We are used to be thinking about China and Russia and so on, but this is much more bigger thing. So Estonia will hold this year, first time, the mobile elections. We can vote in mobile application. This we have tested it. We are hiring the best hackers from the deep whatever part of the world, and they're never able to hack in. But this is not the question. They're hacking into our minds, our people's minds, and this is a very serious thing. And the technology, if you put them together with the political will, it's a dangerous weapon. And this is something new we have never had before. So that's why I'm talking about not values even. I'm talking about actually so-called working democracies.
And when J.D. Vance talks about freedom of speech, okay, we all agree on that, but it seems to me a bit selective freedom of speech. It's freedom of speech if you are the Tate brothers, and not if you are a wokist. I mean, it's a kind of principle, but when they apply it in practice, it seems to be very biased in one direction or another. And also, it seems to be a kind of a neglect of the power involved. Again, in Munich, they also compare Greta Thunberg to Elon Musk. It's something about the power. It's not about freedom of speech. It's also about the power that you can amplify your speech with, which seems to be a concern. In addition, right? There's the technical safety of things.
Technical safety about disinformation, and the Vice President Vance asked as well that, but who are you as officials or whatever, that you are actually deciding which is truth and which is not truth. So this is already the how to say, dangerous path in a meaning. But Estonia is a small society, and we are on top of every kind of freedom of speech, and we are leading the online coalition in the world, and so on. But what we need to guarantee for our people is the solid information they can decide about, and that's the question: whether you are actually spreading and using technology to spread the disinformation. And also we need to educate our people. I think the Nordic-Baltics and this kind of, in Europe, it's not as much a problem about education, but the conspiracy theories. And also, be honest, people are asking questions and they are looking for the simple answers. I was Minister of Social Protection in the year of 2015. When you remember, of course, there was a great panic about immigration in Europe. Really, there are some countries were suffering a lot. But we got a new party, similar to AFT or the Orban's party in Estonia, based on immigration question. I tried to bring like 100 families to Estonia, and they didn't want to come. And we had no immigration in Estonia. No. But people were living under fear. So we are talking about this kind of playing with fears. And if you put the technology, fake information there, you can control more and more people. Fear is always personal. This is always personal. If you read every kind of books, psychological books about fear, this is personal. And if you're able to play with them, you can rule.
I mean, we have elections in Norway this fall.
Yep.
Are you confident that will not be manipulated? Even we're also a very digitalized society, just like Estonia. Is it under control? Speaking on behalf of the government, can we be safe?
No, we should be very much vigilant about these things, because there are now more than a handful of recent examples of election interference in European countries. And we do not have the same protection as Estonians do, because your language is so complicated that it takes it's going to be very it's a big task for these language models and the bots to actually no, silliness aside, preparations are being made. We need to be vigilant as political leaders, as a society, as media. But to be perfectly frank, among the many worries I have on my list, this is luckily not on top of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to open up in a second, so please prepare questions. I want to ask you though about one thing that, which is the response that we're seeing after Sweden, Finland joining NATO, and also all these things happening across the Atlantic. I see the Nordic-Baltic 8. It used to be, I wouldn't say dormant, but it wasn't very sexy, to put it that way. It seems now to be very dynamic. I know you had even today a classified meeting on Nordic-Baltic 8. Can you say a few words about, from both of you, what this fora has become and how important it is?
It has been very cooperative already years, but I feel as well during the last 2 years, mainly after Finland and Sweden joined the NATO. Now this is like the practical frame. But it is cool that this is not like a formal organization. It's much more. It's like natural cooperation. So what we do is that we are coordinating everything mainly about the security, about international policies, about our position in EU and also in NATO and globally. We have like a presidency system. This year is Denmark, next year Estonia, last year was Sweden. As a matter of fact, no one knows, but NB8 belongs to the G10 countries in the world, if we put all this economical power together, and mainly because of you, probably not because of Estonia, but you know, we are so like-minded. It's a weight. It's a political weight. It's economical weight. And the second fact is actually that NB8 countries, we have delivered nominally, by scale, the second largest military support of the US. Second largest military support, and we are all countries committed for the long run, in the meaning that we have promised, you know, Norway and Estonia, and we all NB8 countries, we have long-term, or how can I say long-term, like 4 years, 3 years commitments about military support. So this is a political power inside Europe, inside NATO. And we have Thursday coming as well, our European Union leaders meeting. But there are many of this kind of foreign policy and security policy decisions which needs consensus. So, and sorry to say, I'm always for consensus, but Orban already said it that he will block everything. He will block as well to rollover of the sanctions probably during the June. Let's hope that he won't do it. We are going to lose then the frozen assets as well. We will donate to Russia 300 billion euros as Europeans in June. So what we need to do, we need to form this kind of cooperative frames using, of course, being in EU and NATO, but NB8 is stronger than ever before, and I think that this is the best frame we can cooperate. It's a best frame. And not only about the defense and foreign policy, but I know as well that all the other ministries, they are cooperating a lot, really.
Mm-hmm. Eivind, you want to add something on that?
Just echo everything, and to add on, our foreign minister Espen Barth Eide, I mean, he returned to office as foreign minister a year and a half ago, exactly on the day, a decade after he left the office as foreign minister, and he very quickly made some observations that the world has indeed changed in those 10 years. But one of the most glaring changes, and for the better, is the nature and the quality of the Nordic-Baltic cooperation. Just Margus would know more, but I just did the signal messages group among the Nordic-Baltic foreign ministers. This is one example. It's quite active, I know. And why does this happen? I mean, just very simple facts of international relations is that geography and proximity still matters. And there's a really, really strong sense of like-mindedness. And to be honest and frank, when it comes to assessments of Russia, we were not on different pages, but there might have been in the past certain differences in tone. Those differences have become much smaller. And to be frank again, it's those Western NB8 countries that have moved towards the Eastern NB8 countries.
Yes, I wanted to
just
hint at that, yes.
Last example, just before coming here, we had this NB8 foreign ministers meeting with France and UK foreign ministers, and I was in the basement of your most secured environment. So this is a question about trust as well.
So France and UK joined the meeting.
We
okay, what happened there?
We were discussing actually what were discussed in London just now, yesterday, and also what can we do, the next steps, mostly, you know, very practical steps we can do, and also there will be followed many important meetings, as I said already on Thursday, European Union leaders, but also the defense ministers and the willingness of coalition of willingness. And also it's important that one thing I must be clear, we are not talking about European Union if we talk about Europe. We are talking about Europe together with Norway, UK, Turkey was as well in London. Canada. So this is looked like a new thing somehow, and very powerful.
I understand that Norway and UK and Turkey is also invited on Thursday, at least after the main event, at least to be. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, that's a new format that's going on, but that's nothing new, coalition of the willing. That's what states do when there are practical obstacles to achieve things. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. Who would like to ask a question to the minister or the vice minister? Please. Should we have microphone because it's being streamed? No. Okay, no need. Okay, please, sir. Please introduce yourself also. Sorry.
How much consensus is there in this coalition of the willing to release that $300 billion of frozen assets that belong to Russia? Because we heard President Macron saying in the Oval Office recently that it couldn't be released because it would impinge on international law.
Yeah, there is no consensus yet, but I remember when we started to deal with this topic very actively 2 years ago. No one wanted to listen to us, really. We changed the law in Estonia last year, and Estonia is one of the most conservative countries with a constitution about the protection of the private property. And it passed our constitutional court. So there is no legal reasons, because we are the member of the European Union as well. It's a political will. So, and I think that there is a fear behind that. This is something that we are, you take the assets. It's not a natural part of our traditional way of thinking. We are based on rule of law. So we have seasoned them, we have frozen them, but now if we're going to seize them, this is something that it doesn't fit in. Then the second thing is, I think that still many countries, they have their own interests and economical interests in Russia. So they are afraid as well what will happen with them, assets and whatever there. And the third thing, I think that there has been one argument that so-called like the European trust of investments as an environment will be harmed. But it's not true, actually. I think the other way around. And if US, also Europe, as we started to use the frozen assets profits based on the G7 support, if we all do it together, so I think that our people, they understand it more than actually we are using our taxpayers' money. So, but I think that the last maybe month has changed this understanding more, and as well that Europe must do more, must invest more, and must support Ukraine more. So I do hope that this fear will be gone, and then the decision will come. But the consensus is not still there.
Can I ask, does Norway have a position on this with frozen assets, or is it because at EU it's not really something you need to be in?
We have a position, and that is in the sense that we have, on a voluntary basis, joined the European regulation on that has come over the past year, 2 years on this. Practically speaking, there are no Russian assets to speak of almost in Norway, not really any Norwegian assets to speak of in Russia either, for that matter. And just to the observation, though, that a lot of things have happened. Although you have the assets, mostly large financial sums belonging to the central bank, held in clearinghouses in Belgium primarily. What has happened within the G7, as was referred to, is that you take the assets, but they generate interest. And with a bit of financial engineering, you can actually get rather large packages based on using the profits as payback, without getting into all the financial details here, that can generate quite substantial bits of money as well. That is what happened so far. It's very good. It was happened when Zelensky was in London for the bilateral side of the meeting, that they signed important agreements with the UK government on them. Providing them more funding based on these arrangements of using the proceeds of the assets to actually engineer up support packages.
But still, that's a small amount compared to the potential.
Yeah, but just maybe more precisely, what we have done already is based on G7 decision, European Union, Japan, UK now, US. So we gave $50 billion worth package of loan to Ukraine, which is guaranteed by the frozen assets profits. But it is already a decision then that these frozen assets will be frozen for years. So we have already made this decision. Now to seize them, it's just a continuous of that. So.
But can I ask you said that Orban, what did you say about Orban? It will have to give up the frozen assets? What did I get?
The logic behind that is that European Union, which is the body about sanctions. Yeah. We need to roll over, make the new decision every other 6 months. We have done it already like 3 years. We are adding. We just adopted the 16th package of the sanctions, the new ones. So, but in June, there will be the new momentum where European Union needs to decide to roll over the sanctions, and this is consensus decision, and it takes one to run all the sanctions and also the frozen assets down. Only one country can do it.
Should then the individual countries, like Belgium, for instance, then decide unilaterally to freeze the assets, to keep them frozen?
The main problem is, okay, we have many different legal options for that to keep them, but what we need to understand as well that in Belgium we have more than 200 billion worth assets, and we need to work together. We need to give Belgium as well the guarantee, because we cannot let them alone. So this is something we need to understand. I talked to many times with the Belgian foreign minister, many politicians. I understand very well them, because they have all the responsibility based on the international law. But if we act together, with the guarantee that they won't be let alone, or some other countries as well, so we can act. So, but the good thing is we discuss it very seriously. The legal frames, also the guarantees, also which kind of frame it can be, and that's it. But the thing is that if the European Union is not able to roll over the sanctions, then it may happen that Putin will get all the money. It's not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
Yes.
Majority voting in the EU, I heard about that.
Yes, I've heard. There are many. I think that based on EU treaty, there are still lots of different legal opportunities how to find ways that we don't need consensus in some cases. But Estonia basically doesn't support the change of the European treaty about consensus, because we are the small country, and somehow it's better. But yeah,
it's a trade-off. Any other questions? Yes, sir, please. And please introduce yourself.
Yes, Colin Jonathan, in the board of Polytechnic Association. I actually feel there's not enough focus or deliberations going on with the particular security problems and challenges that your country and Lithuania and Estonia have historically, of course. I don't feel that, well, let me say that there's so many thoughts going through me right now that I come to many meetings where I hear we need to step up, and I'm getting quite frustrated because I don't see any specifics. There are obviously a lot of specifics going on, but we don't hear about it. But I feel that your particular region should be given much more focus in future discussions on what's going to happen. And the other point I have is, I actually believe, maybe I'm fantasizing too much in my old age, but I actually believe that Trump and Musk and Vance have, or particularly Trump, have a deliberate and very deliberate plan which has been discussed in detail with Putin, even before he was elected. I don't know whether enough people are focusing on what his main plan is ahead, not just the war in Ukraine, but geopolitically. And of course, North Korea is involved as well.
Thank you, sir.
If you have any thoughts around those frustrations.
Perfect. Yeah. So a little about the big geopolitical game and Baltic Sea security. I mean, we didn't even talk about cables. You must be a relief for you. but I mean, we have 5 minutes, so they can make a concluding remarks, and Eivind, you can also add in if you want.
Yeah, just thank you for these questions. I can say that about Estonia, we are punching, I don't know how many times over our weight anyways. So we increase our defense spendings within the next couple of years up to 5%. So, and we support Ukraine, and also, but most important principle for us since 1991, when we regain our independence, was that we will never be alone again. We were alone in 1939 and 40. And it was not because of the Allies, because of us, actually. We were run of democracy, and also we decided to be neutral country. And it was a really high price. Finnish people, they fought back. So, and then, of course, we are part of the negotiations and discussions about European security and so on. But also I said in the beginning that we are happy about the new NATO defense plans to our region. And the principle is, you know, as a military person as well, it has changed a lot based on the Ukraine experience, because now we are going to protect from the first second the NATO territory. It means as well we are going to do whatever it needs in our enemy territories. But it needs a new way of capabilities, deep strike and so on. We know exactly what we need to have, and we have decided that we will buy them. We will buy them and we will use them if there is a need for that. We have 200 kilometers strategic depth. And we saw what happened in Ukraine with these territories. I'm absolutely sure that even before existed defense plans, they would protect us. But, you know, after that, victorious counterattack, but nothing and no one would have been left. So this is a change of mentality what we have now, and we are desperately invest to that. And also I hope that all the region is doing the same, because we are protecting all of you as well, together with this flank. Norway as well, the upper part. So about the geopolitical, of course, I think that for Trump maybe the Russian war against Ukraine is just one irritator in the meaning to have a bigger plan about China, about cooperation with Russia in Arctics, which is very close to your interests. So this is a big picture. And about democracies as well, maybe, I don't know. So, I'm sorry I was long, but...
You want to?
No, certainly. I mean, we have 197.7 kilometers of land border with Russia. I spent my childhood growing up 6.5 kilometers away from it. So and an interesting fact in these times is that we keep a very, very close eye on what's going on the other side of that border. And it's actually surprisingly empty in terms of conventional land military forces. They've all been packed up and sent to Ukraine, essentially, where they have suffered big losses. There is a lot happening. What's happening to Norwegian defense forces, and this is the same story in all the Nordic-Baltic countries, is that it's the biggest increases in terms of defense forces in modern history. Yes, it's also a sign of the fact that we're modern democracies, that it might not be so visible in daily life. But in terms of budgets and the resources and investments going in, this is the biggest thing we've seen in modern history. So that is certainly happening. And with the last 10 days events, we are now actively looking into how to speed up even more.
Great. Margus Tsahkna, Eivind Petersson, thank you so much for spending your time with us today and sharing your reflections. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.